So hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Bootcast. I'm your host Eugene Devereaux from IrishWanderer.ie and joining me today is Steffi Singh, the Irish Wanderer. Steffi, thanks for coming on the show. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me, Eugene. So my name is Steffi and I run a blog, The Irish Wanderer, which is a travel-based blog. I am just under the age of 30 still, so I'm 29. I'm originally from Kilkenny in Ireland and I'm now based in Dublin.
Nice, very good. So what was were you always working at whatever you're doing now, or did you change careers, or how did you get into Irish Wanderer?
Well, the Irish Wanderer kind of, I suppose, unfolded over the last kind of 2.5 years of my life. I've always loved writing and I've loved travel. So I kind of tried to combine the two over the last while. And I was a secondary school teacher, and then I decided to change career after being on a TV show in Ireland called Stressed, which I suppose, and the kind of name indicates that, the reason that I got into that documentary was because I was feeling rather stressed because I had too many jobs on the go at the one time. And basically I wanted to go into a full-time kind of writing role. So now, after 6 years of teaching, I transitioned last year and I got a job with Facebook.
Nice.
And I'm basically contracted to them to work as a technical writer and project coordinator. And then I run my blog on the side, and lots of travel in between.
Cool. Nice. So before you were a teacher and then you made that change, what was the reason for that?
Oh man, there is a multitude of them, but I suppose for me, I kind of qualified as a teacher in the middle of the recession and it was really hard to get a job. So immediately after I qualified, I ended up going to England and I taught there for a year. And when I came back then, I started my second postgraduate in English literature, and I was subbing for 2 years and it was just really hard to get employment. And kind of once I started to get some sort of permanency, the first thing that I wanted to do was travel, because I hadn't had the funds and I hadn't the ability to do it during that time when I was studying and constantly looking for work and dealing with the recession. So the second that I got some permanency, I just immediately pretty much booked flights. And that kind of, once I did the first kind of major trip, which at the time I did the Camino, and then I followed that by going to Indonesia about 2 or 3 weeks later for a month. And when I came back from both of those trips, I had just got my permanent contract, or at least I was on a contract that was leading to a permanent contract. And after I did those 2 trips, I realized that I actually don't want to stay teaching at all, and that all that time that I'd been working towards trying to become permanent as a teacher, once I actually had the contract and I had the permanency, I realized that that wasn't what I wanted to do for the next 20 or 30 years. I think travel really changed my outlook about how the world works outside of the classroom, because it's one thing in a book and it's another thing to experience life. So I think travel has been a huge part of that and a huge reason why I, started to transition out of it.
Brilliant. Cool. So you mentioned the Camino. So for anybody who's listening or watching who might know where is the Camino or what country it's in?
Oh, the Camino is a religious pilgrimage, and I definitely wouldn't be putting myself in the category of, a religious pilgrim per se. But for me, it really was a very spiritual experience. The Camino is in the north of Spain, and it's actually part of the kind of south of France, depending on whether or not you're doing the full thing. The full thing is like 870 kilometers-ish. I did a full section of it, and yeah, it was incredibly challenging, but it's a great place to meet people, broaden your horizons, and kind of have a good long walk and think about what you want to do with your life next. It was an amazing experience. I'd really recommend it to anyone of all ages, because there's a lot of elderly people on the walk as well, and a lot of young people, so it's a really interesting experience to go through.
Nice. I'm actually, funnily enough, I'm doing just a week of the Camino in 2 weeks, just a 7-day trip. So
oh, amazing. You'll have a deadly time. You'll even get you get a little passport, a pilgrim's passport. So you get a stamp as you go along the way.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to get everything sorted now, the backpack and travel towel and a few bare essentials. And then I'll be right.
Well, it definitely teaches you how to travel light, because like I went on the Camino the first time. I thought like, oh, I need all these various things, and then I came back and it's just like, you really do just need your backpack, whatever is it, like clothes that are on your back and clothes to change into. It kind of, yeah, it's an interesting experience.
That's the thing. I'm just going with the cabin bag, so a 10 kg allowance with Ryanair.
That's all you need.
Yeah,
it's loads.
Brilliant. So the Camino. How many countries have you been to so far, or is that something that you count? Or
I wouldn't say that it's something that I counted, but I would, if I had to put an estimate, I'd say that I'm up around the 30 mark at this point in time.
Nice.
I also have been back to a lot of countries more than once. Like for example, in the like last year and a half, I've been to India 5 times. So I've covered a lot of certain countries more than once. So I don't really know, like, you know, when people tot up their numbers, I'm like, how many do you count when you've been there several times or for a prolonged period of time?
So India 5 times. What's the rationale?
The rationale is slightly in my my name, Steffi Singh. So I'm married. I got married this year, and I got married in India, which is part of the reason why I've been back so many times. So obviously, my husband is Indian. He's originally from the north of India, and he grew up in the south of India. So it's kind of, again, that's kind of an interesting experience because we've spent a lot of time traveling between north and south. Huge differences between them, huge cultural differences between them, big differences in terms of food. And then we had the North Indian style wedding in the south of India. So yeah, I've spent a lot of time in India recently, which is a beautiful country. It's an amazing place. I couldn't recommend it enough. I absolutely love the food, the people, and I'm not just being biased. A genuinely amazing place to be.
Brilliant. Nice. It's on my list.
Definitely, like everyone should go, because I don't know, like it's just like it follows its own kind of rules. It just doesn't do, you know, what you think it's going to do. It's just the noise, the chaos, and yet everything just goes.
Yeah. What has been your most memorable moment on your travels, whether it's a positive or negative?
Yeah, I don't like I have like a couple of things that kind of come to mind, I suppose. Like obviously like one of the most memorable things, and it ties into India as well, is getting married in an Indian wedding. Like it was a full on, you know, 3 or 4 day affair of complete craziness that goes with an Indian wedding, and being an Indian bride and wearing all those clothes and getting the mehendi, and like that was an amazing experience. I don't know if it's a travel experience per se, but it's definitely an unusual experience that I didn't think that I would end up having in my lifetime. It's just a bizarre, I suppose, to go through all that. It's a really huge deal in India when weddings are just massive. And I think then some of the other times that like my not so great memories is I remember on one of my first trips to Indonesia, just that was like my first time being in Asia and being severely underprepared in every respect. I just wasn't an experienced traveler at that point in time. I really hadn't a clue, and kind of making those last minute risky decisions. I know that one time tried to get from Lombok, which is a little island off of Bali, and I was trying to get out to the Gili Islands, and we ended up going to the beach shore, and instead of our boat, which we thought was going to transport us there was effectively like a bathtub that looked like it had a lawnmower attached to it. And I always remember there was this Spider-Man on the side of it, and there was just this one guy in his little Spider-Man bathtub, and then there was myself and my 2 friends at the time, and we all just looked at each other on the beach and we're like, we're never going to be alive after this incident. You know, actually most of my Indonesian experiences were fairly touch and go between the driving and my stomach issues and everything at that particular point in time, which part of it was just complete lack of preparation. Like I hadn't a clue at that point in time, and I took lots of risks that I would never probably take now, but I suppose it's half the fun of it. It's kind of good memories to look back on as well.
So a Spider-Man bathtub.
I swear to God, it actually had a lawnmower more attached. The sound out of it, it took. I think we could see the island in the far distance, and we were just literally sick, thinking we're never ever going to make it there. It's a disaster,
That's
absolute
that's
disaster.
classic. Brilliant. What would be the single biggest thing that you've learned about yourself from traveling?
I think like over time, I think you realize when you go to these kind of, especially you have those kind of bathtub experiences and then you go into very big cities and you start to realize kind of how resilient and how courageous you can be when it kind of push comes to shove. Travel kind of tends to put you in situations that you wouldn't be in everyday life. It puts challenges in front of you that you kind of need to make decisions quickly, for good or for bad. For sometimes it's for great fun, and sometimes it can be very challenging. So I think, yeah, that's the biggest thing is I've learned how kind of brave and courageous I can be when it comes down to it.
Nice. What would be the top tip then, if you were to give one tip to somebody who's on the fence, maybe about like going traveling or moving abroad or something?
Go. That would be like the number one tip. It would be like, don't even think about it, just go. There's always going to be people in life that kind of think, oh, if you go do this, it's dangerous, or like, why would you want to go over there? You can see it on the telly or whatever. And particularly like, in parts of Ireland, that can be, the norm. Like for me, in my own personal experience, I came from a family that, didn't travel, had none of those experiences. None of my grandparents even owned a passport. They've never left the country before. So like when I told my granddad that I was going to Bali, it was like, oh my God, you're going to die over there. Why would you do that? Like he's just incomprehensible. But I think, and as well, like I went and I did some solo trips as a female, and it was kind of like, oh, traveling as a solo female, there can be a lot of kind of negative, unwarranted feedback around that and how dangerous it is, and why you shouldn't do it, and you're better off to go in a group and all that sort of thing. And I will be vehemently against that. I think that no matter where you are in the world, bad things can happen, and it's just about protecting yourself, looking after yourself. But once you have those kind of experiences, like the pros outweigh the cons. So I just think anyone that's thinking about it, I spent a long time in a classroom teaching, I spent a long time studying, and I learned more about the world in the space of a year or two traveling than I ever did from a book, and I ever will from a book, because whatever about what I thought I knew or what I thought I understood, when you experience different cultures, when you meet the people, when you learn the history, and I'm a history teacher, so even for all the studying of certain countries, when you go to them, it just totally changes your perspective.
What was your favorite like historical building or monument that you came across that you might have taught people?
I'm actually like, I can't believe you're asking me this one, because I know exactly what comes into my mind straight away, and I don't even want to say this, but the first thing that comes into my mind, that the one place that I went, and my specialism in college was in German and Russian history. So like for 10 years straight, I have studied concentration camps, Nazi Germany, and that was my speciality. But when I went to Auschwitz, and I actually went, when I went to Auschwitz, I went with a group of students. I brought them on a history tour there, and it just, whatever about everything that I'd seen, everything that I'd read, everything that I'd watched, just when you go there in person, like it is have you ever been to Auschwitz?
Yeah, we were there, a couple of friends. We did a trip to Krakow, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and we went there on one of the days to the two camps. You can
about Birkenau beside. It's just horrific. Absolutely horrendous. Like there is no birds that fly overhead, and I just felt cold the entire time that I was there. And it's very hard to kind of, even though I had spent years explaining to other people how this happened, it's very hard when you're there and you're kind of confronted with the rooms with the shoes in it or the hair, and you're like, how could humans do this? Like not that long ago. So that was.
I just remember walking through the gate. The gate has the
Arbok McFrey.
and like just even the feeling you get, you walk under this barrier, like the same way that millions of people did,
Yeah.
and never left the place. Then it was just a totally weird experience, hard to explain even still. Like,
Yeah,
it's
it's
just,
horrendous. But I honestly think that everyone should go, especially with what's going on in the world at the moment. It's like all of this kind of right wing. We don't want multiculturalism. We don't want globalization, and having all these kind of political factions rising. That's when more important than ever that people go and see places like that. In my opinion, I just think that you have to see the reality of those kind of policies in the long run,
Yeah, definitely. Have you been to Cambodia?
No, it's on my list actually. I'm going there. I'm going to Vietnam, and that's another kind of major one that I've wanted to do. So I'm going to Vietnam in December,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do Cambodia when I'm there as well. So I'm planning to do Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia we're going for 3 weeks. So I'm hoping I'm like also excited for that one because it's another place that I'm really interested in the history. So definitely on the list as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like, especially in the same way as like Nazi Germany, like Cambodia was just off the charts as well. And it's a place that you don't really hear about in Europe. With the Pol Pot regime and Khmer
I've
Rouge.
studied a bit as well, and it's very symbolic. That kind of those regimes, they all have very kind of small foundations, and they just. I mean, like when people like that get into power, it's incredible. The persecution, the torture, what they can do to their own people is just frightening.
Yeah. So if you do go, obviously that would be a good one to visit as well, especially if you're a history teacher. But yeah, same as Poland, like just horrific.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely horrendous. But I think like when you get out into the world and you actually see these places and you meet the people, like Asian people, oh my God, like it's the nicest people that you could come across. And then to see, it's just, you need to meet people before you can actually realize the implications of these things.
Definitely. So is most of your travel kind of on your time, or do you travel with work, or do you do city breaks, or do you like doing stints, or what's your kind of thing?
Any excuse to get on a plane. That's my thing. Literally any excuse. So I do a combination. I was kind of lucky again, I suppose, that with my husband, we're a very similar disposition. We're both absolutely obsessed with travel. So I definitely met my match. So we have a bit of a contest in terms of finding cheap flights is actually a really big hobby in our house. So we spend a lot of time on Skyscanner trying to figure out where we're going to go next. So we do a lot of city breaks. We both travel for work. So if we can, we'll tie on a weekend. If we're going for work during the week, we'll stay back for an extra 2 days so that we can explore a little bit or whatever. And then we kind of trying to do 1 or 2 major big trips per year as well on top of that. But I like city breaks. Like I like to go kind of every 3 or 4 weeks. Like this year now we've kind of hit the 10 or 12 country mark, and it's now August. So we're right on track. But I think it's very doable. I think that travel doesn't need to be this thing where you're kind of like take out 6 months of your life and, you have to like split it up. Like it should be a kind of lifelong thing. I feel the same about education, that you should always be kind of studying something and working towards something. And it's the same with travel. I feel like it just should be incorporated into your lifestyle if it's something that's important to you. And it's really important to me. So I just try and find ways to avail of any opportunity to do it.
Very good. So I suppose with that in mind, are there any key career or work skills that you've maybe developed or improved because of traveling and because of being in different cultures and countries and stuff?
Yeah, I think it's been a massive asset in the workplace because, my awareness around like things like silly things like Indian, the kind of head nodding is kind of like that's not something that everybody can understand or know. They don't do the kind of traditional head nod that we do for yes and no. It's this one in the middle, and it all depends on the position of the eyebrows. And then part of it as well, like I suppose that just from being around different cultures, I find that I just find it a lot easier to read and to understand the kind of nuances, because you're spending time amongst those people and learning. And then when you're kind of working in an environment like I'm in, it's very multicultural. It's very diverse. There's a lot of traveling involved. It's a global company, you know, so I don't work with teams that are just in Ireland. I work with teams in Sweden, Denmark, the US, Singapore every day. And we communicate like we're communicating now, you know. So it's been a massive asset in that respect. And also it has helped me be able to pack a suitcase incredibly quickly. I don't ever get stopped in the airport. I always have my plastic separated from my liquids. I can unpack quickly. I can pack very quickly. I always have like a little set routine, and I love being in airport as well, which is not many people can say that. But I really like the whole process of traveling. I like being on a plane. I like being in an airport. So yeah, it's been hugely beneficial with my kind of work life as well, you know.
Cool. Are there any travel related resources online or offline that you like, that you use, or that you could recommend?
Yeah, I kind of like with my blog as well, like it's kind of like I want to kind of incorporate my kind of work life, and I kind of like to talk about like, you know, my transition between one career and another. And then on top of that, I want to kind of have plenty of bits about travel, because it's, you know, something that I'm really passionate about. So like I really like other travel blogs. Like I love The Blonde Abroad. I think that's a great travel website. And Nomadic Matt as well. I really like his blog. And there's an Irish blogger that I like as well, Janet Newman. She's like really cool. She's just like completely, totally dedicated to travel. And I think she's got a great kind of ethos and great following and a great attitude to travel as well. I would love to be able to do that. Like it would be my dream to just like, you know, give up everything and spend 2 or 3 years just like going around the globe. But unfortunately, my financial situation at the moment does not allow for that. I have to work in between so I can go places. So yeah, I kind of like those kind of blogs. And I suppose then as well, like I love to spend time reading people's reviews on TripAdvisor. I don't just kind of go on and just like check the activity. I would spend a lot of time reading each person's individual review of the place. So yeah, I spend a lot of time kind of on those kind of main travel websites as well. I love Get Your Guide as well, just to get the main activities, or those kind of ones that you can just kind of pick up what's the main stuff to do and see. And then I love to as well, when I get to a country, I like to get a local guide and just do something weird that you're not a typical tourist thing, just something that involves me being able to go and ask questions all day. I like to kind of learn as much as possible. So yeah.
Cool. So for anyone watching or listening, so TripAdvisor and Get Your Guide, and then a local guide whenever you arrive at your destination.
Essential. The more that you can meet the locals, the better. I always make friends as well. So I'll always make a friend with wherever I'm going. I'll find someone to talk to on the plane. I'll find someone to talk to in a restaurant. It could be anywhere. And I tend to stay in touch with these people as well. I have very strange things that have happened as a result of this. Like I swear to God, I once a couple of months ago, 6 months ago, I was traveling on a flight between Denmark and Ireland for work. And I had spent the whole day as well, or the whole week, with predominantly my team of male managers. So it's like I think I was the only female on the trip for the whole week. So by the end of the week, I just felt like I was like one of the boys. Like I just felt I wasn't like a woman anymore. I just lost my femininity. And I sat down on the flight and I was absolutely exhausted. And this girl sat down beside me, and she had like this amazing hair, her makeup fabulous. And I just literally felt like absolute crap. I was just like, oh my God. And then like she turned to me and she was just like, oh, are you also an air hostess? I can see your nail polish is the same as mine, and are we on the same airline? And I was like, absolutely. I was like, oh, thought that I was an air hostess, so that's great, because I literally didn't feel like a human, let alone look like a female, let alone look like a good-looking air hostess, like this beautiful woman. So we got chatting anyway, and she's Irish as well, and she was telling me she's working for this small little Nordic airline for the last 6 months, but it was her dream to work for Etihad. And I was telling her that I was like just after changing career and that I was on a TV show last year and that I was blogging and doing all these different things. And I was like, just go for it. You know, I hope that you get the job. And she was just at the final round of the interviews for Etihad. And we were talking about travel. And I just said like, oh my God, imagine down the line, you know, I saw you and you were my air hostess on an Etihad flight.
Yeah.
I shit you not. 6 months later, I was on a flight coming back from India at 1:00 in the morning, and the trolley comes down along the aisle. And it was the same air hostess. And she remembered me, I remembered her, and we'd like stayed on touch on social media or whatever, but there's the chances of meeting again were absolutely like zero. So I screamed at her and she's like, oh my God, Steffi. I was like, oh my God, what the hell? Like, how can you be here? This is crazy. It was just absolutely nuts. But that sort of stuff is like common when you travel. Like, it's like weird things that shouldn't happen. Like, I should not have met that person again. It was just mad.
That is mad. Brilliant. Are there any travel apps that you use when you're booking or when you arrive? Like,
I'm pure like standards for these things. I'm like booking.com, Agoda, hotels.com for accommodation. Skyscanner is like, it's my favorite app in the whole world. I literally just for fun, I will spend time on Skyscanner. I just love it. Just like, I'll always go into it and just click everywhere. And a month, I never select dates because obviously if you put in dates, it gets more expensive. So just pick a random month and flights for everywhere and see what I can get. So yeah, they will be kind of my main. I'm like gold membership for booking.com because I book so many places with them. So yeah, any of the kind of ones that just get me there quickly and get me a nice place to stay. Happy days.
Do you take out travel insurance when you go, or do you have like a year-long policy?
Yes, I have like a rolling policy for like the next 2 years. And it's so funny because I'm not like, I like literally, I only got health insurance last year with my new job. It was like part of the job. So I definitely wouldn't be somebody that would have prioritized these things in the past. But travel insurance was always like car insurance and travel insurance. They're the essentials. You can't go without them. I think it's really, really important because you never know, like, and you never want to be in the position where you haven't got something to fall back on. And also I've missed flights, not through my own fault as well. And you can always claim back afterwards and, you know, actually made money recently on a flight because it was so delayed. We had to do an overnight stay and then they lost my luggage on the same flight. And ultimately I financially worked out better for that happening. So insurance is a good thing sometimes.
Yeah. Or even missing a flight, because when I went to, when I was flying to Bangkok, I flew over 3 different flights. So flight to Dusseldorf, Dublin to Dusseldorf, Dusseldorf to Munich, and then Munich to Bangkok. And the last flight was delayed. And if an international flight is delayed by more than 12 hours, I think you're entitled to, by EU law, to up to €600 compensation.
Yeah.
So
it's awesome. And then you get that and then you book another flight.
Yeah, but everything was taken care of for whatever. They didn't even give the reason why the flight was delayed, but they just said, they gave me a leaflet, here's your rights. You're also booked into this hotel for tonight. I got to have a nice sleep. The bag was put on that night. There was no messing the next day. And 2 or 3 weeks later, when I was in Thailand, I was happily checking my bank account one day and it was €600 gone in from the airline.
Happy days.
So,
that's good.
And that was more than the flights cost, you know. So
see, sometimes you can actually make money on these things as well.
You can. No, you can't plan them.
No, it's better. It's still like at the time, it can be so much hassle. Like that particular time, the last time that happened to me, I needed to get home for work the next day. And I was just like, oh no, this is not, you know, ideal. But, you know, sometimes it can be good.
Where are you off to next then? Where's next booked?
Next booked. So I'm pretty much booked up as far as Christmas now. So next up is Berlin. I'm going to the Lollapalooza Music Festival. And then I'm going to Scotland for a wedding. And then I also have, as I was saying, then Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand. That's my Christmas holiday this year, which I cannot wait for. So so that's, so far I probably will have another work trip in between. Unknown destination for that. So that'll be last minute. But so far now I've kind of got a good good 2019 lined up, and I'm very much looking forward to 2020 as well.
So, Steffi, when was the turning point for you? So you mentioned you went on a TV show about being stressed with the way your life was unfolding and your career. Was it the TV show itself that kind of was the turning point, or what? What was it?
I think that the TV show probably made me acutely aware of the fact that where I was living, where I was working, the kind of lifestyle that I wanted and the job that I was doing didn't match. And it was very hard. I kind of felt like I was trying to fit a circle into a square, and it was kind of shoving it in, but it just wasn't, it didn't feel right. And it was like a case of, I knew that I needed to make a change. I knew that I needed to kind of really kind of abandon my old life and accept who I was now as, you know, an adult. Like there's lots of really great things that happened in my community, and there's a lot of great people in that community. So I don't want to just turn my back on it and say that it's all bad, because it's not. And it's where I've come from, and I'm always going to be proud of elements of it. I just wanted to kind of step away from that kind of narrow focus and that kind of, it didn't make sense for me. And a lot of that is travel based. Like I had changed because I had seen the world. I had opened my eyes and seen that there's so much out there. There's so much out there that's not what you're going to see. I remember, and this is like one of the things as well that really now, I was teaching a Leaving Cert class, and I had them for 2 years, and they did brilliant. They're like the highest level of any subject that in that year in the school, the most A's. History class, absolutely flew it. And they sent me a card to say thanks for everything that I'd done for them. The same class I brought to Poland or whatever. And one of the students was like, Miss, in the card was like, Miss, if I see you here in 5 years' time, I'll be sorely disappointed. Take a risk and challenge yourself the same way that you've challenged us. And I was like, Jesus, like what? This is the role reversal that's not supposed to happen. I'm the teacher, and the students are telling me, you know, that this is not for you. And it's hard to accept that, because I loved teaching, you know, and I was really good at it. The results all showed that I was really, really good at what I did, but it wasn't enough. And I kind of like, I felt a lot of guilt around that, and I felt like bad about it. But I realized over time, you know, it's just like your career, it changes. You don't have to do something for 20 years anymore. Like the world does not work like that. Ireland has completely changed in the last 20 years. You can do and be anything that you want to be. This is a completely different society than what your parents grew up in, or definitely what your grandparents grew up in. So I think that, we've kind of got to adapt to our times. It's just changed. Things are different. Sorry, I'm like, there's no one there.
No, that was good. Like, I think that's kind of that's probably the most important thing of of everything I think that we talked about, because I think that's the problem with, like, a lot of people they think that they have to, you know, be boxed into a certain type of job or certain way of life, and that there's no other alternative.
But like the mentality there though is there was no other alternative. Like when I look at my grandparents, they are from families of 10 children. Like my father had 14 on one side. All of my grandparents, 10 or 14 kids. There are no options when you have 10 or 14 kids. If I had 10 or 14 kids in the morning, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. I'd be feeding a child somewhere. Like you can't do anything when you have that, the poverty that they had. You know, they didn't have electricity. Like they didn't have working toilets. Like that's my grandparents. Like that's not like 500 years ago. You know, that was the 60s in Ireland. So it's kind of like, it's hard to compare, but I think that that mentality and that fear has, especially in rural Ireland, I think the fear has permeated generations. The younger generations are carrying it. They're carrying that fear of, you know, what if I mess up, or what if I can't feed my family, or what if I can't provide? And it's funny because they're doing that, but on the other side of it, it's increasing almost their not poverty, but they're tied to the community and the kind of inability to kind of go outside the box and actually create something big for their family. It's like a internalized fear and guilt is holding them back from what they actually could be and what they could do, I think. And especially from teaching, I've seen it. All of these kids that have so much potential, but their mentality is, oh, sure, why would I do that when I could just be here continuing? Like, it's sad. Like, I hate to see that.
Yeah, like I think it does, like what you said, it permeates the different generations, even up to I think the newer generation, like millennials and Gen Z, I think they are really different even
Yeah,
than like our
yeah,
generation, because
100%.
they're born into the smartphone era of where anybody can become internet famous and they can be like this celebrity or influencer, and they think that that's normal, like that's their baseline,
Yeah.
that they're seeing this like on their smartphone at 10 years old, like
Mm,
so they don't have, maybe it's a bad thing, because then why would they like work really hard at something if they think that they can be like an influencer? I'm not saying everyone wants to be an
yeah,
influencer or whatever, but like if they see these like internet famous, not traditionally famous through
yeah,
like Hollywood or traditional media, like they're seeing these people online who are like virtually nobodies,
yeah,
become rising stars. Like the effect that will have on their expectation of what they can do themselves, like.
yeah. It is. It's like, it's hard, like, because they don't, like, I have a brother as well, and he's 17, and having conversations with him about what way, like, he's now going into the leaving cert, and he's thinking, like, what am I going to do? And like, his reality is so different, and the way he thinks about the world is so different.
Yeah.
Um, and he's kind of like, like, when I was growing up, I hadn't even thought about where I wanted to go in terms of travel, because I couldn't afford it until I had a permanent job,
Mm.
and until I could pay for myself to go. It wasn't an option. Whereas, laughing at him the other day, he was on about his bucket list, and like, he had the Maldives and French Polynesia on his bucket list, and I was like, like, those places to me didn't even exist until about 2 years ago, because I would
Yeah.
never have thought it would have been feasible, no matter what I did, to get to those places. Now it's different. I've
Yeah.
been lucky, and I've worked my ass off, and it's kind of led to something. But
Mm.
he has that on his list at 17. I definitely didn't even know where they were. So, like,
Mm.
the expectation, like, I don't think he realizes what work and how much money it takes to get to those places and to do those things,
Mm. But I wonder, like, is that just the natural order of things? Like having those kind of expectations, is that normal now for everybody? Like, or is it a good thing or a bad thing, or?
I don't know. I think it's a good thing, because I think you kind of have something to strive towards. And I'd rather have them, like, again, alcohol, for me, in a small town, alcohol was like the pinnacle of growing up, and everyone just wanted to be out, and they wanted to be drinking as soon as possible. Whereas with him, it's like, he's 17 and he's still not had a drink. To me, I'm just like, what? Like, I can't believe that he's
Yeah.
never had a drink, and he's just
Yeah.
no interest whatsoever in it. Like, and that's really, I think it's kind of telling of the time. They're more body conscious. They're more conscious of their mental health. They're able to detach from, I think, the family unit sooner. They kind of see themselves as individuals,
Mm.
in a way that our generation just couldn't. I don't think it was possible at that point in time. We weren't, I won't say educated enough, but we couldn't utilize technology in the same way. We didn't have,
Mm.
all these ways to kind of Google and say, well, is this normal, or should I do this, or are there any other people
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
think like me on the planet?
Yeah.
Which maybe is not a bad thing, to be honest, because I definitely happy to not have that trail there. But yeah, it is. I think it's changed a lot, but Ireland definitely outside of Dublin, I think, has not caught on to how much Ireland has actually changed. Because I've heard and seen there's such a difference between living, like, I was working in Carlow, like, for the last 5 years, and from Kilkenny, and then you come here, and it's like, things I've seen and heard here, we just didn't, just, it would never happen ever
Yeah.
in Carlow. Like living in a different country. I
Yes.
think that, like, it's good though that what you're doing, and like what I've realized is okay to do. Like, I think that ultimately, because the jobs market has changed so much, you'll be all right because you're at the forefront of that. You know, you already have adopted the technology. You already know how to utilize platforms. You already know how to use it. Like, it's whatever about that. It's the people that have completely decided that, oh, we don't have to do it. Sure, it'll be grand. You know, we'll never have to drive a hybrid car. We'll always have diesel cars in Ireland. Like, that's not the reality. So yeah, I just find that whole side of it is like, there's some serious issues there.
So people have to adapt with change.
Yeah, you have to. Like, technology has changed. The society has changed. Like, look at the 2 referendums that we've just come out of on top. It's so funny. Like, I read this the other day somewhere. Ireland, you know, the most conservative country ever. And the 2 times that we, you know, like, we're now, when everyone else is going conservative and backwards in their thinking, we suddenly become liberal. It's like everyone else has been liberalized in Europe for the last, like, I don't know, 40, 50 years. And now we're like, no, we're the most liberal. So we're so rebellious in our nature, like.
Brilliant, Steffi. So I suppose just before we wrap it up, how can people follow your journey or get in touch, support, show their love for Irish Wanderer?
You can get in touch at IrishWanderer.ie, or else you can follow me on Instagram, which is IrishWanderer as well. Or in terms of tweets, I am Steffi Singh. So you can, any of those, feel free to get in touch. I love to kind of get questions on travel or anything like that, or any way that I can help out. So feel free to reach out anytime.
Brilliant. Everyone watching and listening. So that is Steffi Singh from IrishWanderer.ie. Steffi, thanks a million for coming on the Bootcast, and we'll chat to you again soon someday.
Thanks a million, Eugene. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. See you again. Bye-bye.